I'm joined by Norman Baker, former Home Office Minister. This whole issue of immigration, and obviously we're talking specifically today, very heated exchanges about, what's been happening in Manston and the attack on Dover yesterday. But actually the whole immigration system, when do you think that our population has risen by between 8 and 10 million in the last 25 years? Are we getting this right, Norman Baker?
Well, if you look at the number of migrants in each European country, we're actually down towards the bottom end, which isn't the perception that perhaps the Home Secretary gave. The figures I saw today when I checked it online were there were 135,000 migrants, of which 83,000 hadn't been processed yet properly. Now, this is a matter which you and I will agree on, that when people come in here and claim asylum, it's beholden to the state to analyse those claims quickly, to integrate those people who are genuine asylum seekers who've got a threat of being tortured or death when they go back to their country, and to require those who aren't genuine asylum seekers, if you like, to be removed from the country. And they haven't been dealt with quickly enough. And one of the problems that the build-up we're seeing is that there is a failure of successive administrations, or successive Home Secretaries anyway, to make sure people are assessed quickly.
Well, you were there and part of it. I mean, it wasn't working very well then either, was it?
It wasn't working particularly well. No. I wasn't the immigration minister, to be fair. Yeah. And I made my comments about immigration very clear at that point. But I made that issue very clear to the Home Secretary at the time, Theresa May.
I mean, with Europe, the reason the numbers are massive in Europe, of course, is the insane EU asylum policy, saying that anyone that set foot on EU soil across the Mediterranean could stay. And one of the reasons, one of the big parts of the Brexit campaign was we should not be subject, ultimately, to that kind of system. And I just wonder, isn't this a breach of trust with a country that voted to take back control of its borders?
Well, I think it's if I may say so, Nigel, not accurate to present it in that way, because if you look at Turkey, which is not part of the European Union, they've got 3.5 million
but they've been paid
migrants.
Substantial sums of money to do that.
Well, they may well have been, but there are other countries. If you look at the countries where the most migrants can be found, they're often some of the poorest countries in the world. So it's a feature of geography as much as anything else why we've got this situation.
So are you happy with current net migration figures and the number crossing the
channel? I don't want to look at it in terms of the number of people. What I'm keen to do is if people arrive on our shores and they are genuinely in fear of their life or being tortured.
If it's genuine,
yes.
If it's genuine, I fully understand that.
Right. We should show those people compassion and try to make sure they integrate properly. And if they are economic migrants from Albania, and you and I have talked about Albania before, then they should be sent back. Now, I don't know why we haven't reached a deal with the Albanian government, because quite clearly I'm not aware that there's any particular issue of human rights abuses in Albania. No. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but if there isn't, then those people should be dealt with in a different way. Now, what I don't like about the Home Secretary and her statement, talking about invasions and so on, she's lumping together those who are genuine refugees with those who are economic migrants, and that's wrong to do that in that particular way.
I put it to you, if you lived in a Kent village called Aycliffe and boats were landing on your beach and young men were coming into your village, you might feel differently. Norman, I'm going to keep you here because we're going to go to Aycliffe now, and I want to get your response to this because we're joined now from Aycliffe by Kerry Jones. Kerry is somebody living in that village of Aycliffe, and we spoke last week to some people. And Kerry, as I understand it, someone did try to break into your house. Somebody who landed on a beach near you did try to break into your house. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. It was back in August. And I actually
Kerry,
him my back gate.
Yeah, you must have been pretty scared by this experience.
Absolutely,
and there was over the week
terrified.
Yeah. And there was a press report over the weekend. Suggesting that you now keep. There was a press report over the weekend suggesting that you now keep a weapon under your bed.
Yes, I do. Since August, when I had that incident where I caught him half over my back gate, and I shouted at him, he shouted at me, and neither of us could understand a word of each other. I dialed 999 while he was still on my property, was told that police vehicles were en route to me, and nobody came. So ever since, I have slept with a sledgehammer.
A sledgehammer? Goodness gracious me! Do you happen to have the sledgehammer with you?
I do. It's right next to me.
Gosh. Well, that is a very, very graphic image, I have to say, and I absolutely hope and pray that you never need to use it. Kerry, living in that village, do you have a message to our politicians about what needs to happen?
Yes, I do. They need to come and see the residents of Aycliffe. We need a huge meeting. This estate was absolutely beautiful, and now it's just literally running alive. People are scared. We have got so many elderly and vulnerable people that live on this estate. People are really scared. Everybody is on high alert. Even if you go upstairs in your house, you have to make sure everything is locked downstairs.
Yeah. Kerry, I want to say a huge thank you to coming on GB News and sharing that very disturbing experience with us. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, Norman Baker, I mean, the village of Aycliffe, there's Kerry Jones, and we had some other residents on last week. The beach, Shakespeare Beach, is not very far away. And here you've got young men, 21, 22 years old, going into people's houses, trying to force entry through people's front doors. And Kerry says the politicians need to come here to Aycliffe just to see what it's doing to our community. Do you have some sympathy with her?
Well, as you'll know, Nigel, I didn't hear what she was saying.
But that's why I passed it on.
OK. Of course the politicians should go down there, in the same way that Robert Jenrick went down today to Manson to have a look round at what was happening down there. It's important that they do that. I have to say that, from what I gather, there's a very unfortunate experience here which has affected this woman, and that's indefensible. And those people who are responsible for that, person or persons, should be deported immediately.
They're over there. That building over there behind me, they're the people responsible for what's happening in Aycliffe. We're still signed up to a European Convention on Human Rights that makes deporting almost anybody impossible.
Well, I don't think that's true, actually, and I'm certainly in favour of deporting people who conduct criminal activity such as that. Of course you must be deported. I think it's fair to say, however, that incidents of violence and abusive behaviour can be found in our native population as well as in those who arrive.
That is not the point, is it? That is not the point.
Well, I wouldn't want to present it to suggest that this is common behaviour from everybody who's arriving on our shores. I don't think it is. I think it's minority behaviour. And this which we dealt with firmly and properly.
Well, we'll agree on one thing. Let's hope it stays that way, and a very, very small minority. Norman Baker, as ever, thank you for coming on the programme.